Invoked Mekk Knight does not get the respect that it needs, and you guys could say that it invoked me to make a deck profile of this strategy. Get it? Invoked. This deck has the ability to not only go second almost perfectly, it can break opponents' boards as well as set up really powerful ones on your own. The ability to use the alchemic powers to transform your monsters into very strong monstrosities and even hit for OTKs is just really good. You could say it's too strong. I'm TheCaliEffect, and if you guys want to see more videos like this, then go ahead and destroy that subscribe button. But more importantly, you can transmute that notification bell because, well, we just too strong. I know you guys got that Fullmetal Alchemist reference. No. I also want to take the time to give a shout out to every single one of my Patreons. And with that being said, we have 2 new Patreons. Welcome to the clan, Jordan Russell and Logan Ellenberger. Now, Jordan, how do you have 2 awesome names, Michael Jordan and Russell Wilson? Which sport are you great at? I have to know. And Logan, I mean, come on, Wolverine's my favorite Marvel character, so welcome on to the group, and I appreciate having you guys there. Without further ado, I present to you a competitive Invoked Mekk Knight deck profile for this format, and of course, we have those budget options. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, going into the stats, there is one thing that the Invoked Mekk Knight strategy does have an advantage over, and it doesn't show up in the stat category, and that is the dice roll. More often than not, when your opponent wins the dice roll, they're going to want to go first. And Invoked Mekk Knight takes advantage of that because whatever board that they set up with, it makes the decks that much stronger. Other than that, this deck has quite a few monsters that can get really big, and even a monster that can inflict double piercing damage as well as attack all your opponent's monsters at once. So the attack of this deck is extremely well. Defense, great. Recovery, it could be a little better, as well as power. But more importantly, this deck can OTK an opponent given the moment's glance and still summon some powerful monsters on the board to provide its presence. Getting on with the monsters, we run 18 copies of them. 3 copies of Edward Elric himself, the guy that pushes but does not push me, the Alistair the Invoker. Get it? Push but not because he's invoked, like, okay, whatever. Anyways, when this card is normal summoned, you can add 1 invocation from your deck to your hand, but even more importantly, he's also a hand trap. You can discard him from your hand to target a fusion monster you control and give it 1,000 attack and defense. He is the main invoked monster inside of the main deck. Plot twist, he's the only invoked monster inside of the main deck, and you want to get to him as fast as possible. He provides so many plays. That's it for the invoked monsters. For the Mekk Knights, I actually run a really interesting combination of them. I run 2 copies of Mekk Knight Blue Sky, 2 copies of Mekk Knight Purple Nightfall. Now that could be pretty standard depending on what Mekk Knight build that you're playing. A lot of them can either play 3 and 3 and call it a day, or 2 and 2, or even 3 and 2, and that's pretty much it. But I go a little bit further. I play 2 copies of Mekk Knight Indigo Eclipse, 1 copy of Mekk Knight Mekk Knight Yellow Star, and 1 copy of Mekk Knight Red Moon. Now, you guys could say that I run the entire rainbow because I have blue, purple, indigo, red, yellow. Okay, anyways, this deck, or these cards are really good. I wouldn't play any different combination, and there's actually a pretty big reason why we play 2 copies of Indigo Eclipse. Not only can this monster summon itself and then move itself to another zone, making room for your other Mekk Knight monsters, but it actually plays really well with this trap card that I'm playing in this deck that further disrupts my opponent. The Purple Nightfall allows itself to banish itself from inside of the field or any other Mekk Knight you control to gain advantage. Now, I cannot stress how powerful this card is because a lot of times it leaves me with no monsters on the board, so I can further activate other card effects before I start going into my combos again. Blue Sky is probably the best Mekk Knight monster when it comes in turn of searching. When it summons itself to your opponent or to the field, you get the search cards from your, or Mekk Knight monsters from your deck to your hand up to the number of cards your opponents control in the same column. I keep messing it up, but cards your opponent controls in the same column, so you can search up to 2, probably even 3 additional cards that are Mekk Knight from your deck to your hand. So this is extremely powerful, but it doesn't get off as much as you guys would like it. Red Moon and Yellow Star are also really powerful. Red Moon allowing you to destroy a monster in its card's column by banishing a Mekk Knight monster, and Yellow Star allowing you to destroy a spell or trap card by banishing a monster. Yellow Star has 2,800 defense, that actually does come up, and Red Moon actually has 2,600 attack. That is the sunrise and sunset of the Mekk Knight monsters that I play. Get it? because they're moon, and then it's star, and then eclipse, and then nightfall, and then sky. No, nobody gets it. Okay, that's basically it for all of the real monsters that we play. We do play 7 hand traps inside of this deck. I was going for 8, but I really think that 7 is really good because I didn't feel a need for anything else. 3 copies of Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring. If you guys can't afford Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring, the deck does get a little bit trickier because, again, Invoked Mekk Trio is a really important card, and Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring allows you to unlock that potential by putting it in the graveyard, disrupting your opponent, and giving you a fire monster to fuse with. You could rely on the opponent and their Ash Blossoms and Joyous Spring, but as of right now, I don't think that there's another better fire monster that can carry the weight of Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring and not be a problem inside of your deck. So I would really urge you guys to get Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring. Of course, we still will have those budget options. 2 copies of Droll and Lockbird. Now, this card is also a really powerful card inside of this game. Main reasoning is that you can discard it from your hand to the graveyard to prevent searches, but even more importantly, inside of this deck, it's a win monster, so you can use it to make your rage in plays, but it's just extremely good against the top tier meta decks, preventing your opponent from continuously searching. Against Goki, if they activate Reinforcement of the Army, they are literally just... It's nothing they can do about that. Against Sky Striker, after they activate the Engage, it just gets worse and worse from them once you activate Droll and Lockbird. And then my last 2 hand traps are ironically Effect Veiler. I think that this card is very, very powerful into this format. And on top of that, it provides a light monster to my graveyard for Invoked Mekk. That is it for the monsters at 18. It's a pretty low count, and I've seen a lot of decks run like 10 million hand traps. I don't like playing 10 million hand traps because that forces me to go second, and there's like not really much else you can do. If a player is really adept, or if a player wants to go second and I go first, I'm going to be stuck with a whole bunch of hand traps and an invoked monster and some Mekk Knight monsters, so that really doesn't help as well. On to the spells. We run 24 spells, 3 copies, or 23 spells. We run 3 copies of Magical Meltdown. Now, I've been seeing quite a few players drop this down to 2. My personal opinion is that you guys could drop it down to 2, but do you really want to? Because I want to see Alistair the Invoker as fast as possible, like ASAP. Not even ASAP. ASAP's too long of a word. I want to see it alright? I want to see that card fast, and this card can melt your deck into getting other cards. Get it? Magical Meltdown, whatever. Next, we play 3 more copies of Magical Meltdown in the form of Terraforming. This card allows you to search Magical Meltdown from your deck to your hand, but more importantly, it terraforms the sky into whatever you need. Okay, that was terrible. That was a Mekk Knight terraforming pun. Next is 3 copies of Invocation. This card is just amazing. I do play Pot of Desires, so banishing 1 or 2 copies with Invocation isn't terrible because I do play 3 copies. Banishing 3 copies is like, what are you doing? I don't understand how that happens, but I guess it could happen. Very low. But this card is a card that I also want to see as fast as possible, and mainly because it allows me to fusion summon. Sometimes I'll have the Alistair the Invoker, I'll summon it, he'll get hand trapped, and well, great, I'm in a bad position. Well, it just so happened to open Invocation on top of that, so I can still continue on with my plays, making Alistair less susceptible to hand traps. Now, the next card I'm going to play, I am playing a proxy of. I don't understand why I don't have these cards, but 3 copies of World Legacy's Memory. I'll include the link to the card as well as the effect down below in the description. But this card is really powerful to the strategy. What it does is that I can special summon 1 Mekk Knight monster from my deck to my side of the field, but it returns to the deck, or it returns to the hand during the end phase of that turn, and I can't special summon any other monsters for the rest of the turn except for Mekk Knight monsters. Now, I really want to emphasize that it says for the rest of the turn, and also it's a quick play, so I can activate it in my battle phase to get an additional Mekk Knight monster to my side of the field to attack for game. I can also activate it on my opponent's turn to get Purple Nightfall to my side of the field, banish the Purple Nightfall, and then get advantage. It's just an extremely powerful card, and I wouldn't play less than 3 in this particular build. Next is 3 copies of Called by the Grave. This card is just nasty good. I hate being hand trapped, especially in this deck where there's so many cards that could be vulnerable to hand traps, such as Invocation, being vulnerable to a random ghost spell, or you know, your Nightfalls being susceptible to my apologies, Ghost Ogres and Snow Rabbits, Alistair's being you know, Veilers, you know, just any of those cards that just really mess you up pretty bad. 3 copies of Call right here to ensure, or you know, to better fit that I will have a hand trap disruptor card. Next, we do get a little expensive. I actually do play the Sky Striker engine. I play 2 copies of Mobilize Engage and 3 copies of Hornet Drones. Again, we do have budget options. I'll be showing you a plethora of cards that you guys could use instead. But the reason why I actually ran this as opposed to Scapegoat is because Scapegoat is pretty prohibitive. You can only activate Scapegoat technically on your opponent's turn if you want to get the full use of the Scapegoat and then get all your tokens to start linking away. With Sky Striker, Engage, and Hornet Drones, not only can I get token monsters to start linking off to my side of the field, but I also get a fire monster on my field for a quick Paraga trio. Now, if you guys just don't have the engages, you guys could play Hornet Drones with these budget options because Hornet Drones is still pretty good, but the engage also ensures that I can get to the Hornet Drones. Another thing is that I play 23 freaking spells. So the odds of me activating engage, searching a Hornet Drones, and then drawing a card are pretty freaking high when it comes to this deck. Next is 2 copies of Pot of Desires. Not really much else to say about Pot of Desires. It is a free draw 2 cards. It's your Pot of Greed. Banishing 10 cards in this deck does not matter, as you guys can see. I run just about 3 of everything important, so losing 2 copies of a certain card won't really matter. And the last card that I run for spells is Instant Fusion. Now, Instant Fusion plays 2 ways. It can summon Invoked Raging to my side of the field, and then I can flip the Raging face down and then, flip it back up next turn. Won't get destroyed. Now I have a free Raging to my side of the field. But I can also special summon Thousand Eyes Restrict and snatch an opponent's monster. And now I have 2 monsters in the same column, or 2 cards in the same column, giving me a free Invoked Mekk Knight summon. Now the last card that I'm playing is a super secret tech card. I'm not sure if I'm going to drop it, but so far in testing, it did awesome. 1 copy of World Legacy Secret. This card is nasty. I was playing 2 and decided to drop it to 1. But the most important thing is that it is a Call It Hunted. It's not the most important thing, but it is a Call It Hunted. It can special summon your invoked monsters back to your side of the field. It can special summon your Mekk Knight monsters back to your side of the field. But its other effect says that if your opponent has a monster in the same column of your Mekk Knight monsters, that monster effect is negated, which also allow me to backtrack, is the reason why I run 2 copies of Indigo Eclipse. It allows me to manipulate my monsters to whatever zone or whatever column my opponent is, thus negating the monster's effect. So not only is it a Call It Hunted, it allows me to negate monsters' effects with my Mekk Knights. It's a really big pressure card. I don't think I would run more than 1 in this specific build, though. That's it for the main deck at 42 cards, 18 monsters, 23 spells, and 1 trap. For the extra deck, 1 copy or 2 copies of Invoked Mekk. I don't think that games last long enough for 3, first of all. And secondly, Invoked Mekk isn't great anymore. It's a very good card, but with cards like Jamming Waves running around, you don't want to discard to negate a Jamming Waves. They're just going to follow whatever they play. You want to force them to search the Jamming Waves, I guess. But against other matchups, the games won't last long because, again, you get the negated a banish card your opponent's out of the field. Next is 2 copies of Invoked Paraga Trio. Now, I like 2 copies of this is because you can use one of them as free as you want because it is a board wiper. It allows you to attack into every single one of your opponent's monsters once, and then when your opponent doesn't think you have a second one, you just summon the second one and attack all their scapegoats to finish off the game. It allows you to play it a little bit more carelessly and also gives you a pretty big board presence. He's as much as a boss monster as Mekk was. 1 copy of Invoked Raging. Not only can you summon this through your opponent's drone locks, your own drone locks, and Instant Fusion, it's a really good card. Flipping opponent's monsters face down, flipping this card face down, another card you control face down. Really good disruptor. 1 copy of Thousand Eyes Restrict. This is Mr. Snatch Yo Bitch. It restricts the opponent from playing Yu-Gi-Oh! Snatching their monster, giving you 2 cards in your column, some of your Mekk Knight monsters. That's it for the fusion monsters. We do play quite a few link monsters. Borlo Dragon, the best Link 4 in the game. Decode Talker, one of the better Link 3s in the game. It's really nasty, easy monster to go into. Nightmare Unicorn, Nightmare Phoenix, and Nightmare Cerebus. Not only do these guys help me discard important cards to the graveyard, allowing me to keep going with my combos, they are disruptor cards. Phoenix, Spell and Traps, and Cerebus, Special Summon Monsters, and Unicorn, any card on the field. 1 copy of Underclock Taker. This card is amazing in this deck. I probably would consider playing 2 if I didn't play like Unicorn and other monsters to point down. 2 copies of Ace Kagari. This card is also really good. Just basically a free link monster to your side of the field to start linking off and making plays with. And then lastly, 1 copy of Link Kribo. I do play 3 copies of Sky Striker, Hornet Drones, and I didn't want to play Shizuku because, Shizuku doesn't do anything for me. I'm going to link it off anyways. So I felt that Link Kribo was a better option, mainly because it also had an arrow pointing down, and it was a free monster with an arrow pointing down to allow me to link summon out of my extra monster zone. That's it for the fusion monsters. or for the extra deck, my apologies. For the side deck, I actually got this from Rob Lowe, a really awesome guy. One of my favorite players to watch in the competitive circuit right now. He was mainboarding 3 copies of Cyber Dragon. Now, the reason why I side them is because I don't expect to see Goki like every freaking day. But if I were to main Cyber Dragons, I would not play normal Cyber Dragons. I would main Toon Cyber Dragon and play Toon Table of Contents, mainly because Toon Table of Contents not only allows me to get into my Cyber Dragons very fast, but it also fuels the graveyard for Sky Striker, Mobilize, Engage. 1 copy, I Chimera Tech Mega Fleet because I don't play it in the extra deck. 2 copies of Ghost Ogre and Snow Rabbit. This card is an easy replacement for your Effect Veilers or whatever hand trap isn't working for you or whatever card isn't working for you to better combat your matchups. 3 copies of Twin Twisters for Back Row Disruption. 3 copies of Shared Ride from where my opponent forces me to go first, or if I have to go first in some specific particular situation, it's going to give me advantage. And then 3 copies of Mind Crush for almost the exact same thing as Shared Ride, but it allows me to disrupt the opponent. Now, there are quite a few budget options in this build. And hypothetically speaking, if you guys can't afford these Sky Striker Mobilizes, Engage, possibly just some other cards, I do have quite a few other options. You could just go ahead and play the Kaiju engine. I actually really like the Kaiju engine, the Interrupted Slumber of 3 Kaijus. This is a card as a Dark Hole. It gets you a Kaiju to your side of the field, but more importantly, you can Kaiju your opponent's monster and then choose where this monster goes to, giving you a card in the opponent's zone to summon a Mekk Knight monster too. Next, you can also play Scapegoat. Scapegoat is really good at generating tokens. The only thing that I didn't like about it is that it's slow, and you have to dedicate extra deck resources to it. And lastly, you could play the Spellbook of Knowledge. If your opponent were to like Effect Veiler or Ash Blossom, your Alistair following up with Spellbook of Knowledge to draw 2 additional cards might just get you into the cards that you needed to go off with your combos anyways. Now, those are some really solid budget options, and I'm excited to show you guys the test hands with this deck because it's really, really fun to play. Alright guys, so I know I said test hands, but I really meant combo tutorial. And to be honest, the test hands and the combo tutorial are pretty much going to be the same. It's really dependent on what your opponent has for you to combo off, because this deck does have monsters that rely on opponent's card on the side of the field. One combo I wanted to show you guys is basically if your opponent like has Scapegoat on their side of the field, you can outright win the game. All you need is Sky Striker, Mobilize, Engage, and Alistair the Invoker, or if they have like 0 defense monsters. Let's say, for example, you Book of Eclipse, because Book of Eclipse is actually a really good card in this deck. But if you Book Eclipse like 3, 4 Invoke or Goki monsters, I decided not to play that because it's a little bit gimmicky, but still just giving you guys a scenario where your opponent has 0 defense monsters on the field, or if you just want to clear their board with a Paraga Trio. The first thing you're going to do is activate Sky Striker, Mobilize, Engage, and with that, you're going to add Hornet Drones from your deck to your hand. Go ahead and use the Sky Striker Mecha Hornet Drones to spell summon a token to your side of the field, and then link off with the token to link summon right into Ace Kagari. Now, Kagari's effect is going to trigger, and depending on what I have in my graveyard, I add the appropriate card. So, like, if I have enough spell cards in my graveyard, I add the Engage back to my hand. But this time around, I'm just going to go to the Mecha Hornet Drones, activating the drones, adding the drones from my deck to my hand. You don't necessarily need to activate the drones again. Next, you're going to follow up with the Alistair the Invoker, and then use this effect to add Invocation from your deck to your hand. And then these 2 monsters to link summon right into your Underclock Taker. Now, if you guys wanted to follow up with a, Nightmare Unicorn, you could have activated the Hornet Drones before you normal summon to Alistair the Invoker, and then used all 3 for the Unicorn to disrupt your opponent's card, as well as follow up with Invocation, to banish these 2 monsters, to spell summon Paraga Trio to your side of the field. That is the biggest reason why I actually like the Ace Kagari, is because it allows you to provide a fire monster to your graveyard for Paraga Trio, where Scapegoat really only provides earth and dark monsters. Lastly, you're going to use the Invocations effect to place it to the top of the deck to add the Alistair the Invoker, and you wind up with a very similar combo in your hand, Alistair the Invoker and a Mecha Hornet Drones. Your opponent gets rid of the Paraga Trio, or use the Paraga Trio or whatever. You can still follow up with another play with these 2 cards in your hand, which is really good. Another thing I wanted to show you guys, is Mekk Knight Purple Nightfall and Alistair the Invoker. This combo is pretty powerful, but it depends on your opponent having cards in the same column or you providing 2 or more cards in the same column, however it may be. So what you're going to do is special summon the Mekk Knight Purple Nightfall by having 2 or more cards in the same column, however your opponent does it or however you do it. And then you're going to banish the Purple Nightfall to add Mekk Knight Blue Sky from your deck to your hand, and then within that same column, you're going to special summon Mekk Knight Blue Sky. Now, provided that your opponent has a card in their column, you're going to activate Mekk Knight Blue Sky's effect, and that's going to either add Red Moon, Yellow Star, or even Eclipse from your deck to your hand. It really doesn't matter. It's all dependent on that certain situation. I'm going to go ahead and add Eclipse because it's the more generic one, and then we're going to normal summon Alistair the Invoker, activating Alistair's effect, and that is to go ahead and add Invocation, next using these 2 monsters for a link summon of Underclock Taker. And the more I think about it, the more I feel like I should play just more than 1 copy of Underclock Taker. It kind of feels underclocked and overworked for its implications. Get it? Because those are puns on underclocked and overworked. Okay, forget it. But that's going to make the Underclock Taker. But more importantly, you can follow up with that Invocation play to special summon Macabre to your side of the field, and then use the Invocation, placing it to the top of your deck to add Alistair. So with this combo sequence, you have a monster to discard with Macabre, you have an Alistair in your hand, you have a Purple Nightfall that will return to your side of the field, as well as a Macabre and a Underclock Taker, and that's just really good. That's the type of things that this deck does. This card is technically a 1-card combo. It's the World Legacy Memory, and it's going to get you a substantial board. It's not going to do anything like crazy busted for you, but during your opponent's turn, you activate the World Legacy's Memory, and with that, you special summon your Mekk Knight Purple Nightfall, and then activate Purple Nightfall's effect, banishing itself, to add Mekk Knight Blue Sky from your deck to your hand. Now, during your standby phase, the Purple Nightfall is going to return. You want to return it to any zone that a monster isn't occupied to. And then, of course, you want to fill those columns to special summon Mekk Knight Blue Sky. Now, provided that my opponent at least plays Yu-Gi-Oh!, they probably have a monster in their extra monster zone, so it would be safe to assume that you can summon it right here. And we're going to say that they at least have 1, because obviously that would be it. So we would get a free search, which would probably be any of the 3 again. You can add Red Moon, Yellow Star, or Indigo Eclipse from your deck to your hand. And it really depends on the situation. I'm just going to go ahead and again add Indigo Eclipse. You're going to then banish the Mekk Knight Blue Sky to add another one from your deck to your hand because, you know, now that's a good effect. I don't know what else to say. And then since the columns are still unoccupied, you can special summon the Indigo Eclipse, move it to an adjacent zone, and then special summon the Mekk Knight Red Moon. Now, in order for you to gain your Mekk Knight Red Moon, you could use these monsters for a link material. For you guys won't believe what I'm going to be summoning. That's right, Underclock Taker to your side of the field. And this is just like in the most bizarre of situations. If you really needed your opponent's monster and their extra monster gone, then you can use your Red Moon to banish to destroy a monster on your opponent's side of the field, as well as leaving an empty spot for you to still special summon extra deck monsters to your side of the field and being able to special summon blue or bring back Blue Sky back to your side of the field for some more free plays. That was basically all off of 1 card. It's just really good. The last combo, not necessarily a combo I want to talk to you guys about, or not necessarily a combo, but I want to talk to you guys about, is of course World Legacy Memories and World Legacy Secret. Now, Secret itself doesn't have to be in the same column, but the monster that you want to negate does. What you do is you have your Secret face up. Whether you use the effect to special summon a monster from your graveyard to your side of the field is irrelevant. And then when your opponent activates a monster effect, you're going to chain the World Legacy World Skies. And you have 2 options. You can bring out the Purple Nightfall to negate that singular monster's effect, and then to be able to recur resources by banishing it to search monsters, or you can special summon Indigo Eclipse to your side of the field, negates that monster effect in that column, and then when your opponent attempts to activate another monster effect, you move the Indigo Eclipse to that card's column and negate that monster's effect as well. This deck is still really powerful. It's really dependent on what your opponent does. As you guys can see, it's really relying on your opponent's board, which is why it's a great going second deck. Thank you guys so much for watching another segment of the TheCaliEffect. They say that the mech shall inherit the earth, and this is definitely one of the decks that will inherit the earth because it is a worldly deck. If you get it, the meek shall inherit the earth, and they're worldly because they're the rainbow. Okay, thank you guys so much for watching. Please like, comment, subscribe, but most of all, enjoy. I hope you guys are having a great day like I am.